Can you build a wall out of time? A wall strong enough to stop an invisible killer? This piece of wood is the answer. It's a simple plank of poplar, scarred with 40 notches. Each cut marks a day. It smells of smoke and salt water. And it holds the secret to one of the most powerful ideas ever invented. The year is 1576. A ship from the plague-ridden island of Candia is anchored just beyond a chain in the Venetian lagoon. On the quay, men wait. They won't cross. They dip their money in vinegar. They pierce letters and hold them over smoke. This wooden tally isn't just counting days. It's measuring the exact distance between this vibrant, living city and total catastrophe. So, how did time become a wall? And why did the world settle, almost universally, on the magic number of 40 days? To find the answer, we have to go back 3 centuries to a moment when a shadow fell across the world. The Black Death. It wiped out a third of Europe, leaving a terrifying silence where life used to be. Suddenly, port cities that once traded silks and spices started trading something new: survival tactics. And in 1377, the Republic of Ragusa, now Dubrovnik, had a radical idea. They called it a Trentino. Any ship arriving from a place with plague had to wait for 30 days on a barren, isolated island. You couldn't set foot in the city until your 30 days were up. It was a simple, brutal idea. And it worked. It worked so well, in fact, they soon extended it to 40 days. Sailors hated it. Merchants complained. But the idea was too powerful. It stowed away on their ships and spread with the markets. But it was Venice that took this raw experiment and turned it into a finely tuned machine of the state. In 1423, on an old monastery island, they founded the Lazaretto Vecchio, the world's first permanent plague hospital and isolation center. Then, in 1468, came the Lazaretto Nuovo, designed specifically to hold goods. Imagine it, a giant, open-air Amazon warehouse for decontamination, where bales of cloth, barrels of grain, and crates of hides were baked in the sun and bathed in smoke. By the middle of the century, Venice had set the global standard. Quarantena, 40 days, was the law of the sea. So that brings us back to the magic number. Why 40? Why not 35 or 50? Well, it wasn't just one reason. It was 3 powerful logics that locked together perfectly. First, the practical. 40 days was just long enough for the human body to reveal any hidden sickness. And it was long enough for the fleas in the wool and the rats in the cargo hold to die off. Simple observation. Second, the medical logic of the day. Doctors weren't thinking about germs yet. They were obsessed with cycles and patterns based on humoral theory. 40 just felt right. It fit their models of crisis, climax, and resolution. And third, and maybe most importantly, was the cultural power of the number 40. It was already burned into society's brain. 40 days of Lent. 40 days of the Great Flood. 40 days in the desert. It was a number people already understood meant purification and trial. The number solved a technical problem and a trust problem at the very same time. The tools they used were blunt, but incredibly precise. Giant stone warehouses with open courtyards to expose goods to the sun. Ropes with lead seals stamped with the name of each merchant. And wooden tags, just like this one, to tell you exactly which day you were on. The air itself was a tool, thick with the smoke of juniper and rosemary, the sharp bite of vinegar. They'd puncture letters and pass them through smoke, slosh coins in sour bowls. An entire army of guards, boatmen, and scribes performed this ritual with the mechanical regularity of a prayer. But paper did just as much work as stone. By the 1500s, ships couldn't sail without a bill of health, the Patente di Sanità. It was your ship's passport of risk, stamped with one of 3 words: netta, clean; sospetta, suspect; or brutta, foul. Imagine that. Your entire journey, your life's work, reduced to a single word and a wax seal. And a network was born. Ports shared information. Rumors of outbreaks turned into entries in ledgers. And those ledgers created an invisible web of surveillance across the sea. Then Venice made it permanent. In 1486, they created the Magistrato alla Sanità, a permanent board of health. This wasn't some temporary crisis committee. This was a bureaucracy with a budget, its own inspectors, and real teeth. It had the power to detain ships, to search cargo, and to levy massive fines. The state, for the first time, was claiming the right to bind a person's body to protect the entire community. And of course, this waiting game became its own economy. You had to pay fees for your stay in the lazaretto. You paid fines if you broke the rules. The entire system of commerce had to bend around this new reality, learning to price time itself like a commodity. 40 days was no longer just a good idea. It was law, written into Senate decrees, logged by sea captains, and carved into tallies just like this. And here is the click. The real breakthrough. Quarantine is a technology that weaponizes time. When the enemy is invisible, you can't fight it with a sword. So you fight it with a clock. The state learns to turn an interval, a simple span of days, into a wall. A wall that's portable, enforceable, and scalable. It's a genius blueprint. Fear is turned into a predictable ritual. That ritual is turned into a written record. And that record is turned into public policy. 40 days stops being a number and becomes a promise. Uncertainty will end. This wooden tally is a contract between total strangers. It says, if you and your cargo can survive the clock, the city gates will open for you. This is the birth of public health. Not in a sterile laboratory with microscopes, but in the grime and chaos of a port built from logistics, surveillance, standard forms, jurisdiction, and a shared calendar of patience. And that ghost is still with us. In fact, it's all around us. Those old bills of health? They became the yellow cards and international certificates of vaccination you need to travel to certain countries. The chain across the Venetian Channel? It's become the airport jetway lined with thermographic cameras. The same powers Venice asserted to detain, isolate, trace, and report are now codified in the world's international health regulations. The clock gets an upgrade, but the logic is exactly the same. The last few years taught us a new set of numbers, 14 days, then 10, then 5, driven by viral incubation curves instead of religious texts. But the experience? It was purely Venetian. Timed isolation. Digital QR codes rebranding clean, suspect, and foul into green, yellow, and red. Exposure notifications in our pockets acting as the new wooden tallies. Quarantine hotels serving as our modern, city-side lazarettos. Even letting our packages sit for a day before we open them. That's the same impulse. We didn't invent this system in a high-tech lab. We inherited a habit of building with ours. Every time a timer starts on your phone, every time a gate agent checks a certificate, every time a package waits on your doorstep, that old Venetian machinery hums back to life. So, the verdict is this: when we cannot see the threat, we learn to build with time. And in doing so, we ask millions of strangers to believe in the same clock. The reason our recent past fractured and healed along lines of 5 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, intervals that felt so arbitrary, is that these numbers are the building blocks of trust. But this story isn't over. And if you think turning time into a wall is fascinating, you need to see the incredible story of how we turn sound into a weapon. Click the video on your screen right now to watch it. But first, a question for you. During the recent pandemic, what was the one waiting period or rule that affected your life the most? That 14-day quarantine? The 6-foot rule? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to keep decoding the hidden systems that run our world, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell. You'll never see the world the same way again.